So, because it is the off-season, I've explained this multiple times, but I'll do it again here just in case you're new, there's nothing to talk about. So anytime we see articles or ideas tossed around there that I feel get traction on social media, I'm like, yeah, that's a cool conversation, let's make a video about it. And this topic is no different. Now, I have to be very quick with talking about this because as with a bunch of the other topics revolving around players that have not gotten traded or signed just yet, this topic, this video, could be nullified in the matter of seconds, depending on what happens later. By the time I press public on this video, this player might have actually signed somewhere else and the entire video is going to be for naught. So, we're going to try to get through this quickly. Let's talk today about a free agent on the market right now who still has not gotten a contract and who needs to get signed. He's a guy who was linked to the Vancouver Canucks for years, and right now, there's an opportunity for some lucky team to go out there and maybe get him for cheap. Let's head over to the Minnesota Wild and talk about Matt Dumba. Now, if you're a Canucks fan who has been keeping up with Canucks trade rumors over the years, you probably know Dumba, you're familiar with him and his profile, what he brings, or what he brought at least to the Minnesota Wild. Right now, he's 28 years old, 6 feet, 181, right-handed guy, 28 years old, and he doesn't have a contract. A few years ago, he was a very good, bona fide top 4 offensively capable defenseman, getting 50 points in 82 games in 2017-2018. As his career has gone on, though, you could see the production start to decline. Now, that's not his fault. His games played also declined too. So, point numbers like 22 points in 2018-19 are all of a sudden a lot more impressive when you realize he did so in 32 games. As his career went on, he eventually had a 27-point in 57-game year in 21-22, which was alright, but this previous season is where Dumba really fell off. 14 points, 79 games played, -8, and he ends up becoming a free agent. The Minnesota Wild don't re-sign him. He is still a free agent to this day, and who was once one of the better offensive defensemen and primed Canucks trade targets in the past, has now become a player who could not find an NHL home. Enter this article from Steven Roget from Canucks Army yesterday. Matt Dumba could be the short-term right-handed defenseman solution that the Canucks are looking for. This article was published on Canucks Army. The link is going to be in the description if you want to go ahead and read this yourself. But because this article goes over a name that Canucks fans are so familiar with because he's always getting linked to Vancouver, you saw a bunch of discourse on social media. Twitter was popping off with Dumba conversations yesterday, so was Reddit. And what I wanted to do was just go over the idea presented in this article, talk about my thoughts, and just talk about Dumba as a whole, whether or not this actually would be a primary get for the Vancouver Canucks. So before we dive deep into what Roget says in this article, let's talk about the Vancouver Canucks D-core as it is right now. With the additions of Soucy and Cole, you have yourselves 5 guys, burgers and fries, that are essentially solidified on the team's blue line. Quinn Hughes, Philip Hronek, Ian Cole, Carson Soucy, and Tyler Myers. OEL was in there, but he got bought out, so we're not going to talk about him anymore. The final spot on the Canucks D-core would preferably be handed out to a left-handed guy, and whether or not that's Jack Rathbone, Akito Hirose, somebody else, it remains to be seen. There are some other defensemen that could make the jump. Cole McWard is in there too, and then there are all the other guys that rotate in and around the bottom of the lineup. But if you add Matt Dumba to this mix, you all of a sudden eliminate the capacity for somebody like a Rathbone to be a full-time Canuck. If you're saying, all right, Dumba's going to be signed on and he's going to play 82 games, then all of a sudden you have your D-core filled. Now, of course, that's not talking about injuries. We're talking mostly about an ideal world here. You're always going to have guys coming in and out because players never play 82 games. So just thinking about the team on paper, Dumba would likely get that last spot, which could be a good thing if you're interested in Dumba and his services, but could be a bad thing if you want to see a guy like Jack Rathbone, for example, develop more. But either way, Matt Dumba, when he's at his best, is an offensive guy. He's able to produce points, he works hard, he hits hard too, and he's a leader as well. Maybe not the best defensive player, but he's got a lot of qualities that make him a valuable player at both ends of the ice, on the back check and the forecheck. This is a guy who made his bread and butter in Minnesota, putting up points and firing pucks on goal. And so if the Vancouver Canucks are interested in that, then okay, bring him on, have him on your third pairing, I guess, because you'd have Hronek most likely on top of him, and then the Hughes and whomever pairing on top of that. So if you have a fourth pairing, if you had a third pairing of, let's say, Dumba Myers, somebody's going to have to play on the left side. I don't know how solid of an idea that's going to be, but it's something you could throw out there. Either way, though, let's head back over onto the Canucks Army piece talking about Matt Dumba. The article talks about how Dumba might actually be available for cheap because he's been on the free agent market long enough that guys in this range of free agency who are still unsigned normally don't get the dollar amounts that they want at the beginning of free agency. So since we've seen this happen to a number of players with the salary cap ceiling largely being unmoved since the pandemic began, there just isn't as much money to go around than there used to be. So guys that end up suffering the most are the ones that don't get contracts, like Matt Dumba, for example. It's not all bad news for Dumba, though. He could sign a 1 or 2 year deal now and hit the UFA market again after the cap has risen dramatically in the years to come. Some players are turning down long-term offers to specifically become free agents again when the cap is up, so it's not the worst strategy in the world. Rajat writes this, that a short-term medium salary contract could set Dumba up to cash in a big summer or two from now, and it might be the best he can hope for at this point. So why would the Canucks be the ones to offer him that deal? The article then talks about Dumba and his offensive capabilities, how he's got the analytics behind it, how he also hits, and that's something that the Canucks need a little bit more of, that physicality. And so when it comes to the acquisition, all of which adds to Dumba being a fine addition to the roster, but we can't really place aside salary, can we? As it stands right now, the Canucks don't have any room for further additions, especially not one of Dumba's caliber. But what if they were able to trade somebody away? All it would take is the trading of a Beauvillier or a Connor Garland to open up enough room for a short-term Dumba deal. Perhaps the additional dumping of a Tanner Pearson or something along those lines might be required to make it all fit, but the possibilities are definitely there. Now this is where the article kind of takes you for a ride a little bit. And this is why I wanted to talk about other perspectives as well. The rest of the article is in the description. There's a lot more written about here. But this article, published by Rajat, was posted onto the Canucks sub, and this is what the analysis says here on the Reddit. I get why you'd want an upgrade on the right side, but there are two key flaws in this article. Rajat seems to assume that moving Beauvillier or Garland is relatively easy. It's abundantly clear at this point that teams will need to pay a pretty high price to move wingers with that kind of salary. And number two, there should now be enough prospects on the cusp of maturity that one of them will be serviceable. Maybe I'm wrong, though. Now, this is where I would say that when it comes to the caliber of talent, like if I were to point out just who is more talented as an NHL defenseman today, Matt Dumba or Jack Rathbone, I'd probably say Dumba. Not to disrespect Rathbone, we all know he's got the potential to being better, it's just right now, I mean, Dumba is a few years removed from having a pretty alright season, all things considered, so it's probably safer to give him the benefit of the doubt. But the thing is, the Canucks are still in this transitory period where you're really hoping that your younger guys take steps, and you're not necessarily a prime-time cup contender just yet. The top comment on the Reddit goes out there and says this: Dumba played top pairing minutes on a playoff team as a right-handed D and is in his prime age. He's not going to be cheap, and if he is cheap on a one-year deal, it means buying cap space in the form of paying assets to dump a winger contract to get a one-year upgrade at defense we likely can't afford to keep moving forward. If we were expected to challenge for the cup, this would be a great idea. But a team that isn't close, there's no reason to chase a trade that sacrifices future for a 1 or 2 year push to be mediocre. And this is where you talk about the priorities. Because if you wanted to have Dumba, sure, he improves the team. But is that really worth it? Is it worth it to trade away extra stuff to free up the salary cap space in a Beauvillier or a Garland trade just to get Dumba for a year? Especially for where the Canucks are right now. Who really knows? You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about this entire Dumba situation? We're approaching the 10-minute mark, so I guess we're going to end the video off here. I feel like we've already gotten enough food for thought in there. But I'm also being very careful in making this video because just in case Dumba does sign a contract between the time I finish talking on this microphone and the time the video goes public on YouTube, I don't want to be caught with my pants down just saying, oh yeah, Dumba, this, not good, whatever, Vancouver, and then maybe Rajat is actually a prophet and Dumba does sign with the Canucks and all this analysis is thrown out the window. Like, it's gonna be interesting to see where things go. But for now, Dumba is unsigned at the time of recording this audio, and I just wanted to have a conversation about the Canucks. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Matt Dumba, the idea of him getting signed to the Vancouver Canucks, how he's been linked to this team in trade rumors for years, and how now he's got the potential to come over for cheap? What are your thoughts on this? Do you think the Canucks should do it? Do you think Dumba should do it? How much do you think he gets on the open market in a few years? I hope you enjoyed this Vishal 9. And bye.